Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online, and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the new home of power mining analysis. Well, unfortunately, Anthony and I had to reschedule our meeting with Ben Gannon, CEO of Bitfarms, until tomorrow. Despite that though, we have a great episode for you today. We wanted to provide an update on our Miner Madness trading competition, receiving a ton of attention, very exciting. In addition to that, we got news out today from CIFR and a few industry updates on a macro level that we wanted to discuss. Now, before we get into all that, please take a second, smash the like button, guys. Big help to ourselves, the channel, helps get this content to other people who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below your picks for the Miner Madness competition, your outlook for the miner segment overall, and your thoughts or price target on Bitcoin for year end in the final few months here. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's video. Okay, guys, so that's right. Tuesday morning, unfortunately, we had to reschedule with Bitfarms. Anthony and I very disappointed about that one, but we are able to have Ben on tomorrow. So we will get those questions across and post that video as soon as possible. We're interviewing at noon, so we should have it out within a few hours after lunch, Mountain Standard Time. With that being said, Anthony, Bitcoin price has pulled back slightly this morning. The miners are mixed. We'll talk about that in a second here, but a brainchild of yourself, the Miner Madness Q4 Bitcoin mining stock competition has really taken flight here. It's got some legs, Anthony. I guess there's a demand for this kind of competition or healthy competition in the space. So I'll bring up the slides here, you guys. We wanted to quickly walk through the specifics of the competition. Anthony, you can talk about where this idea came from and what we saw last time when you participated. But in a nutshell, you guys, a little bit of healthy competition here. You guys want an opportunity to beat the analysts. Now you have it. So we've reached out to all of the top analysts on Twitter, on X, on YouTube. We've got their picks here. How it's going to work, we're going to take a screenshot of the closing price of all of the publicly traded Bitcoin miners as of the end of September. The competition starts October 1st, and it's going to be percentage gain on your fictional $300 investment, which we'll talk about in a second here, on your top 3 picks from October 1st through to the end of the year, the end of day, December 31st. Now, in the event of a tiebreaker, Anthony, for example, if you and I had the same top 3 picks in the same order, we also wanted to get a Bitcoin prediction. So in US dollars, where do you think Bitcoin will close out the year 2024? Now, the additional information here, Anthony, and how we're going to make this work is this fictional $300 investment. So again, direct your eyes to the screen here, guys. How this is going to work is assume, again, this is a free competition, assume $150 of your 300 goes towards your first pick. 100 will go towards your second pick. 50 will go towards your third pick. Whoever's able to get the biggest increase on that fictional $300, whether you're looking percentage or dollars, from October 1st to December 31st is going to win. In the event the 3 miners are the same as another contestant, we'll use Bitcoin as the tiebreaker. Is there anything I've forgotten in the rules, Anthony?
No, and you're quite right. People are not, by psychology, are always want to be a little bit competitive, and we constantly see people putting in where they think certain stock prices are going to be. So really, I mean, you see these in sort of like fantasy sports leagues where people, pick out their golfers or their soccer players or basketball, blah, blah, blah. And we're doing this for stocks. And I didn't realize how much interest it would have until we announced it yesterday. And we were really doing it on yesterday's podcast pretty much off the cuff. But we've had a sit down today, we've thought about it, and yeah, we've got some sort of like rules in place now. And we'll start collating all the data onto spreadsheets, and we'll be posting some of the table to show those that are doing well on the newsletter each fortnight. So we do a newsletter. So if you're not subscribed to the newsletter, go onto the website, subscribe to the newsletter, get those updates because this will start being included on those as well. And we might look at sort of like in the next 6 days before we go live is to look at work out maybe some prizes for the winners as well, something like the top three or something like that. So you're not just competing for the sake of it. There's a little bit at the end there. It could be in the terms of financial, or it could be in terms of some swag or something like that. But we'll work out something in the next 6 days and announce that when we're ready to go live. But start thinking now about your picks if you know them already. And we've had so many, we've had hundreds of responses already from yesterday's announcement. So we'll be collating all those into the spreadsheet and ready to go next week. But it's interesting. I think having the Bitcoin price in there is also good because I think a lot of people will have similar miners in their picks. We know which are the sort of like the favorites at the moment. So a lot of people tend to get emotionally attached to shares and they'll think that their pick could be, the one that makes it. But this is really about choosing the right share. It could be one of the biggest companies. It could be one of the smallest companies. It could be it could be a Marathon Digital or a Soluna. And if you think, that your investment in either of those companies is going to do well, then that's the chances that you're taking. But as I say, the next 3 months, and if it becomes a success, we'll probably roll it out, quarterly in the future and see how it goes. But it just keeps people's interest in play as we're all looking in the same space. We're all looking at the mining stocks. We're all doing research. And so we just thought we'd try and consolidate something like that. And it's great to have, like Bryce said, some of the big names on Twitter, Bitcoin mining guys put his picks out there, and Sebastian and DR Lewis, and we'll get a few more of the people that we look at. I did something similar about a year ago, I think for the last sort of 8 months of 2023 against a number of other analysts, and I did quite well in that scenario there. We picked 5 stocks that time, so that was even more. But actually, believe it or not, I mean, most of the mining stocks towards the latter end of 2023 did really well anyway. So I
Sure.
think the average uptime was like 400 or 500%. So there you go. But yeah,
That's
let's
not
see what
bad,
we.
eh? Now,
Yeah, so
Anthony, you bring up some of the local celebrities here. Sebastian, Bitcoin mining stock guy, DR Lewis. I took the liberty to consolidate their picks onto a slide here as well. Wanted to get your analysis on these picks, Anthony. So, IREN consistent across all three of the portfolios. We have Bitcoin price ranging from 87 to 113,000. So interesting to see these ones come through. Anthony and I will post our picks as well before the competition starts. But you astutely say, Anthony, interesting to see what some of these other celebrities in the space are doing. Now, we brought along a mid-morning market update as well, so we can talk about some of the movers this morning. Interestingly enough, CIFR up in excess of 10% this morning. We'll talk about some news related to them in a second here. But Anthony, anything you're seeing on the movers and shakers board? Again, kind of a split morning, but starting to get a little more green than red, it looks like.
yeah, I think the majority of shares were green prior to opening. We saw the Bitcoin price just over 63,500 at the time, and that was a good signal for miners there. But Bitcoin price has pulled back, and it looks to be in that sort of bracket there, 63 up to sort of like 63,700 at the moment. So with that movement, it's sort of like the mining share price to the move as well. So you've literally got half of them in the green, half of them in the red. Um, but yeah, the standout share today is CIFR, and we'll come on to that one in a minute.
Yeah, we sure will. Now, we also wanted to touch on some ETF inflows. Our good friend at HODL 15, we're going to try and get a pick off him as well. 19th, 20th, and then Monday, the 23rd, showing inflows consecutive 3 days, albeit, Anthony, not a significant amount, under $5 million. Nonetheless, continuing on that 3 day trend. Hopefully, that can continue here Tuesday. And we actually wanted to talk about some interesting changes at BlackRock as well to do with ETF buying and selling. But how are your thoughts on the ETF inflows currently, Anthony?
Yeah, as I say, green days is positive. And so, we've had far more green days than red days. But it looks like since that stretch of red days we had at the end of August and beginning of September, we're now back into green for the majority of days since then. And lots of speculation in the social media space about Bitcoin price, looking to make the next move up. So we're just waiting with anticipation. It's going to be interesting next 3 months because as we said yesterday, we're getting into that bracket now where the Bitcoin price started to rally strongly at the end of 2020. So let's keep an eye on where that goes in the next 3 months.
Most definitely. And for the record, I've been telling Anthony, I think this is the rally we've been waiting for. I think we are starting to see that cyclicality kick in and that big Santa Claus rally, so to speak, start to unfold here. Now, speaking of ETFs, Anthony, we also got an interesting headline out this morning. BlackRock amending their Coinbase agreement, basically requiring them to take action through on-chain purchases or sales of their ETF related Bitcoin within 12 hours. So, a lot of rumors and speculation over the last few weeks about paper Bitcoin being sold, maybe delays on when people are selling their ETF versus when the Bitcoin itself is being liquidated, or vice versa. This has actually prompted change in the industry. So, whether or not that activity was going on, they've taken action now and said, hey, you know what? This stuff needs to be taken place on chain, traceable within 12 hours.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I wasn't aware that Coinbase weren't actually physically selling the Bitcoin when the actual sell orders came through. They were just holding on to it and obviously giving recipients the cash for selling the Bitcoin. But yeah, this makes sense, to show that Coinbase are actually doing the transactions that are going through their books. So yeah, it's all positive. And hopefully we don't sort of, that this will not hold back the Bitcoin price because that's the key thing. When we're talking about large numbers of buy and selling of Bitcoin, we want to make sure that the price is reflected accurately.
Most definitely accurately and timely. And we talked about that on our live podcast. One of the questions was how on earth we show these slides, Anthony, of there's 450 Bitcoin mined globally a day. The ETFs are buying 2,000. They've doubled the Bitcoin production since the ETF's launch. People are saying, hey, the buying pressure's there. Why is the price not going up? And you and I are scratching our heads as well, saying, hey, maybe there's just a bit of a delay or a bit of extra air in the system or whatever the case is. Lark Davis came out with a really interesting tweet as well today talking about Q4 specifically. So we saw an interesting slide a few podcasts ago about September traditionally underperforming. This one has to do with Q4 in general. So if you look at Q4 historically over Bitcoin's existence, an average return of 88% in this 3 month period. So phenomenal rate of return in Q4. He astutely says, hey, if we see 88% from here, we're already at 120. Even a 55% move would get us up to 100. However, last year, when we saw this similar move of 55%, we didn't have the election, we didn't have ETFs, we didn't have the aggressive rate cuts we're seeing, and this FTX distributions, which we've addressed as well, Anthony. So historically, Q4, huge quarter, 88%. Last year, 55% without all these additional catalysts. So this is obviously extremely bullish for Bitcoin moving into the fourth quarter here, Anthony.
No, absolutely. And as we've just articulated, minutes ago, we're expecting Bitcoin to rally in this last quarter now, and who knows? And that's why we've got the Bitcoin price in the competition just to see how many people out there. And we've already seen there's not too many people putting the same pricing for Bitcoin currently. So it's going to be quite interesting where it ends up and see who gets it spot on. Maybe we get Plan B to put in an entry because he's got the stock to flow model, so um, that should be as accurate as anything, shouldn't it?
Yeah, we should get Sailor and Gary Cardone. We'll reach out to some of our bigwig friends here. We also have, you're traveling again actually this Friday, Anthony, a little travel bug over there. So we have you being backfilled with Freedom by 40. He's going to come on with some of the technical analysis and the charts, give us an update there. So it'll be interesting to see his perspective on where Bitcoin's going as well. Now, Anthony, before we get into the CIFR news, you came up with a very nice little graphic this morning on Twitter. This was one of the first posts I actually read when I woke up, looking at share price performance of the biggest miners we cover, really talking about that HPC deal, cementing Core Scientific spot as top gain over this period. Second coming in would be Wulf. So maybe we can talk a little bit about this graphic, what it really depicts, and why you think we're seeing these trends between the HPCs and the pure play miners. Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today.
Yeah. So first things first, this graph really just goes back to the 3rd of June, and that was the date that we had the major announcement from Core Scientific highlighting this 200 megawatt hosting deal with CoreWeave at the time, which has since increased to 382 megawatts. And what does 382 megawatts look like in terms of financials? Well, it's a contract over 12 years worth about $6.7 billion. And from that, the company are expected to achieve a net income after covering all their costs of about 4.7 billion, which represents about 71%, net margins, not gross margins, net margins. So the market at the moment, as we understand it, and we've spoke to analysts on Wall Street, who cover the Bitcoin mining stocks, and where their eyesight is at the moment. I'm not talking about retail investors. We're talking about the analysts of these major companies that most of you know, the JP Morgans, Cantor Fitzgeralds, H.C. Wainwrights, B. Riley's, etc., etc. And their eyes are currently focused on the predictable revenues and margins that the HPC and AI business models are implying. And the reason they're looking at these is because these revenue streams aren't correlated with Bitcoin price. So, where Core Scientific signed up for a contract for 12 years, it's there in black and white. They know what the revenues are going to get over that period. And providing they provide that service to the level of the contract, and there will be clauses in that contract which will provide penalties if they don't achieve certain milestones, then they know pretty much what their revenue is going to be over the period, and potentially what their costs will be during that period and what their margins will be. So that's what Wall Street like, predictability. You haven't got the same with the Bitcoin miners doing, mining Bitcoin, because, we come on the podcast every day and the Bitcoin price has changed. Some days it's up, some days it's down. So the unpredictability of Bitcoin price at the current level is not getting the attention from Wall Street that the retail investors are currently focused on. However, Bitcoin price is 63,000 and change today. If it was to rise over 100, 120,000, then I think the conversation would start to move back in the direction of the Bitcoin miners. And so what I've done here is I've done this graph just to highlight performance of all the mining stocks since the period of the 3rd of June, just to see if there's any correlation in there with those miners that are looking to move into the HPC space. And as we can clearly see, there's no shock that Core Scientific itself has achieved 159% increase since that date in terms of its share price. And TeraWulf who we talked about quite a lot over the last few weeks. Have a significant site and power at Lake Mariner, and they're already suggesting that they're not going to increase, or they're not going to give a growth target in Bitcoin mining for 2025 because they're focusing on utilizing power to deliver HPC. Their share price in the last 3 months has also rocketed up by 142%. And then you've got the likes of Bit Digital, Hut, Soluna, Hive, Bitdeer. All of those companies are currently doing something in the HPC space. They've all got HPC businesses. And IREN there, I mean, IREN are showing just a 1% increase since that period, but it's still an increase. Bear in mind, the price of Bitcoin over that period is down 7%. So we know that miners are generally correlated. So you would have expected, maybe if the HPC wasn't an issue, then the majority of these miners would have been down over that period. Like the Bitcoin price is down, it was 68,000 back on the
Yeah.
on June the 3rd. So IREN at 1%. And then look at the mining companies that are then showing, in terms of, red then, and you've got the likes of Bitfarms, DMG, Marathon, CIFR, Riot down 24% and CleanSpark down 41%. And we've talked about CleanSpark incessantly this year because, they grew massive market capitalization, rose all the way up to 4 billion. By the end of March, and we've seen that now drop to literally half that amount in the last sort of 5 or 6 months. So CleanSpark and Riot are categorically two of the miners that have consistently said over the last 3 months they're not interested in the HPC space. They're focusing on being pure play miners. They want to be best of class. They both got very similar hash rate targets to achieve this year. They both look like they're going to get to those targets this year. So they're fully focused on delivering, hash rate. CleanSpark are delivering hash rate and operating generally close to that hash rate. And Riot, we know they've had performance issues at their Rockdale facility for the last, probably 18 months, couple of years, nearly now. And we're going to see September's update come out, and we're trying to get Jason on the podcast next week to come on and coincide with their operational update, so he can give an update to retail investors and followers out there to say, we're turning a corner, because I think they are turning a corner, but we need that corner to be really turning, in September now. We're getting close to the end of the year. We want to see that big update there. But those are two miners that have focused on the pure play. CIFR, we'll come on to in a second. They've purchased, a big site, which they're going to look to deliver HPC there. So, we've seen the share price today. I mean, this chart was done before opening price there, so it doesn't reflect the increase today. So CIFR would be still negative, but not as negative as it is showing on the graph here. But Marathon, they have shown interest in terms of they've brought in two new directors who've got experience in delivering, HPC data centers. And so you can see that they're looking at moving into there. And I go back to Riot, who I'd say if the CoreWeave deal came along for Riot Platforms and said, look, let's use 600 megawatts that you've got available at Corsicana and deliver HPC, they'd be going out there and changing their strategy 100%. So I don't want to sort of indicate that they'll never do it. I think CleanSpark are probably the ones that have been have highlighted that they don't feel it's a long-term business plan for the miners. They're not quite sure why the miners moving into this space, and so with those comments that they put out on social media, it means that they're probably the furthest away of all the miners from changing to HPC. But like any miner, I mean, any miner can change its strategy. I mean, Marathon change strategy about every 2 weeks at the moment. So, any miner can do that. DMG have said they're interested, but again, it's like, by saying you're interested doesn't mean you're going to be doing anything about it. And Bitfarms, again, in the same way, they've got the facility at Stronghold now. They've got the other facility in Pennsylvania, the Sharon facility there. So they could we could see that, but we'll need more of an announcement. I mean, the companies that in green have, Bitdeer have got HPC in Singapore that's operating at the moment, and they're going to grow it in some of their other sites as well. Hive Digital already achieving something in the region of 10, 12, 15 million of annualized revenue in HPC. Soluna also got to HPC business in place at the moment, and that's growing because they've got another project on the go now that will deliver more HPC. And Hut, one of the earliest providers of HPC in terms of when they bought the 5 data centers, and they're looking at making sure that they can get the best return for power. They've got a lot of power, a lot of sites, and the likes of Bit Digital. Well, we know that at the moment of all the mining companies, Bit Digital are getting more revenues in terms of HPC than every other miner on that sheet there. In fact, probably every other miner added together in terms of HPC. So. That's where Bit Digital are there. So you can see that sort of narrative, that share performance since 3rd of June is trending towards those that have got HPC in the business there versus those that haven't yet formally committed to setting up a facility. The one that stands out for me is TeraWulf because TeraWulf have actually got or starting a small project or a couple of small projects, one I think at a couple of megawatts and one at 16 megawatts. But I think that share price there is based on an announcement yet to come. And we've talked about this long now. I mean, the fact that they're not looking to increase hash rate in Bitcoin mining next year suggests that they're doing a lot of work to try and land a big client. And so, or even to the state, they might even get, purchased out. They might, Paul's already said if the right check comes along, he'll take the check. And, as all those companies are there, I don't think there's any company with more insider ownership than TeraWulf. So they could make that deal happen really quickly if it came along.
Yeah. Something brewing in the Wulf Den there, but as you allude to, Anthony, over 40% insider ownership. So definitely something going on behind the scenes, it feels, at TeraWulf. You also mentioned Bitdeer, their Singapore HPC operation. Also looks like they had quite a bit of fun at the Singapore Grand Prix or F1 there as well, Anthony, as part of the Token 2049 event, sponsor of the F1 Singapore race. So definitely some cool photos coming out of there. And Jeff, if you're watching this and you need some extra supporters to come out next year, we're there for you, buddy.
But
We could do that.
there.
Now, you talk about CIFR. Now, you just mentioned on that table that doesn't account for today's moves. CIFR's now up near 11%. So that shows you how quickly these miners can really pivot and accelerate in terms of share price. They came out with some news today in relation to a 300 megawatt site. So I'll let you walk through that one as well, Anthony. But this was definitely the headline of the day so far and pushing CIFR to the top of the pack in terms of performance.
Yeah, so today the CIFR Mining announced they've completed the acquisition of the Barber Lake site, which is in West Texas, and they've paid about 67.5 million. And for that site there, they get a variable rate of $3 a megawatt hour for the next 5 years after energization. So, a good rate there. They've also, so the 300 megawatt site already has, high to mid voltage substation and all the necessary approvals in place. And so it's therefore, suitable for either large scale HPC hosting, which I know they're interested in going into, or it can be used for increasing Bitcoin mining. Now, bear in mind they've got the Black Pearl site that's rapidly going through, and being built this year to deliver significant amounts of Bitcoin mining next year. But we had Tyler on the show recently, and he expressed if the right offer came along for the Black Pearl site, he'd be happy to switch that to HPC. I mean, everybody wants that CoreWeave deal or a deal similar to that CoreWeave. And believe you me, if it come across any of the miners' desk, they'll all be jumping at it, and we get an update, as quickly as it could be. Signed off. So this is a good update for CIFR today. They're constantly, Tyler also indicated how many other sites that they had options on or looking into there. And he's expressed, enthusiasm for the acquisition because the sites, it's rare to get these sites. I mean, Jason Les came on the podcast earlier this year and said, "Gone are the days now you can pick up big sites, for Bitcoin mining." This is before the HPC interest. And he was talking about Corsicana, this 1 gigawatt site, but he was saying that, might as well have problems getting these, 300, 400, 500 megawatt sites because they're scarce now. So Tyler's really enthusiastic because this is a rare and it's immediately available for them. So with this purchase, the portfolio now will expand to over 2.5 gigawatts, and that puts them in terms of power on a par sort of with Bitdeer because they've got about 2.5 gigawatts as well. So in terms of power available, that will be available over the next year or so. Those two companies stand out with probably the largest portfolio of power on their books that's physically going to be available. I know that IREN have got the 1.4 gigawatt site, which is effectively a field at the moment, and the 1 gigawatt site, which with an option on there. But again, they're not nowhere near started yet. I'm talking about CIFR Mining and Bitdeer in terms of where ground's been broken, and they're currently working towards delivering, this amount of power, and 2.5 gigawatts for both of those miners tends to put them sort of like, in prime position for whichever business they actually are able to determine for those facilities. So yeah, it's a good news update for CIFR, and you can clearly see, the market likes that by saying it's available for HPC as well as Bitcoin mining. That's probably, woke up a few more of those guys on Wall Street there, and the share price reflects that today.
Last year, exahash used to be the thing you wanted to talk about in your earnings call. Now it's HPC. Anthony, I don't know if you saw this article, Microsoft talking about re-energizing the 3 Mile Island nuclear power plant, but just an extension of how dire it is right now in terms of access to power and available power. We have hyperscalers now working with the US government to bring nuclear reactors out of hibernation, or I guess out of end of life service. So I'm not sure if you saw that one, Anthony. I won't put you on your feet, but a very interesting article. I'll bring it up on the screen here and you guys can take a read through that as well. A lot going on in today's podcast. Make sure if you take one thing away from today's podcast, it's to leave a comment below with your top 3 picks in order from October 1st to December 31st, along with your Bitcoin price prediction in US dollars. It's free to enter. You can sign up for the newsletter, follow along every 2 weeks. Very fun competition. Anthony, we've got Ben on the channel tomorrow. Going to be doing our interview with Bitfarms, and we've got Riot on the channel next week. So a number of big names coming up. I'll pass it back to you for any closing thoughts, but a great podcast today.
Yeah, good podcast today. Just let people know I'm traveling to Frankfurt on Friday, and I'm going to be at the Proof of Work Summit there on Saturday. So if people are going to the summit, it's a big conference. There'll be a lot of good speakers. I know Hive Digital are going there, Core Scientific are going there, many other good speakers on the list there. So I'm going to be attending that there. I'm going to catch up with some of the key miners that we speak about on the podcast regularly, and yeah, looking forward to it. So I've got a trip there, and then the following week, like you've articulated already, we're off to Amsterdam for the Amsterdam conference, the Bitcoin conference there, where we're both speaking. You're as a moderator, and I'm actually on the panel this time as a speaker, so that'll be interesting. So looking forward to that. Looking forward to catching up with any of the subscribers that are going to the Amsterdam conference. And there was a few indicators already they're going there, so look forward to catching up there. But yeah, lots happening in the space. We'll still try and get the podcasts out, so we're not going to sort of like have a total breakaway. But yeah, look forward to it, and look forward to seeing your updates on your top three in the Bitcoin price. Let's try and get this up to 1,000 people. We're in the hundreds at the moment, so I think this week we can really push it. Spread the word out. Make sure you like and subscribe and subscribe to the newsletter, because we're going to start putting in the tables in there with the sort of like top 10, top 15, top 20. And by the end of the week, we'll probably highlight some prizes as well that we're going to issue for the top three or something like that. So keep your eyes focused on where we are. But yeah, should be a good competition.
I was gonna say, Anthony, with a couple hundred wanting to be 1,000 entries, we got to get some pretty good prizing. So, any miner companies watching this, if you want to sponsor a sweepstakes, here's your opportunity. Miner Madness, make sure you're participating, make sure you're entered. It starts next week. Great podcast today. We have Ben here tomorrow. We'll see you guys there and then talk to you soon.